Hey guys, Ethan here from Extreme RC 4x4. I'm working on the trail finder again today. I don't have the parts on hand yet, but my new XVD axle shafts are supposed to be coming in the mail today, so I have nothing better to do than take this apart, hoping that they come today. If not, that wouldn't be the best situation, but I think we can do this with the axle on the truck. All I'm going to do is pull the steering knuckles off of this, and then we should be able to pull the axle shafts out from inside the axle. And the reason I'm upgrading to the XVDs is if you saw my steering modification I did last week, I have a lot more steering travel now, and the stock dog bone shafts are binding up on mine. So in order to keep that steering travel, I'm gonna install those new shafts, and they shouldn't bind like these ones do. Just pull the wheel nuts off here. And the front wheels. You guys can get a look at my custom machined wheels that I have on this. I did those probably about a year ago now, maybe a little less than that. I might have done it over the summer, but really nice aluminum wheels. They were a lot cleaner before I bashed them on a bunch of rocks, but they're meant to be used. Some of the easiest beadlock wheels I've ever installed. So we do have to pull the hexes off of these because we're going to pull the pins in the axle shafts. Then we can pull these off, and we'll want to make sure we don't lose those little pins that are in the ends of the axle shafts here. These little drive pins are all that engages the hex in the axle shaft. And then with those pins out, we can go ahead and start working on removing the knuckles. When these knuckles come out, we'll want to make sure that we catch the brass bushings that are in them. So they are shouldered, I guess, so we can't pull them out the top. They shouldn't fall out the bottom on us. Flip it over. I'll just pull this side off here, and then we can get out our dog bone style drive shafts, axle shafts in here. Something to set them on. So mine are really gross, dirty, at least that side is. This one. Yep. Okay, so it doesn't seem like the axle shafts want to come out the ends yet. Not sure what would be keeping them in, but I guess I'll pull the third member out of the axle. Alright, so I pulled all those screws off. that one on the bottom's dangling, so definitely dirty. Still feels like something is holding them in. Maybe if I loosen up these leaf spring screws. And another thing, guys, if you're wondering what all these aluminum parts are, it's my AX10 mounting kit. You get great ground clearance and you get to get rid of the stock transmission out of your trail finder, whether it's a 2-speed or a single speed. And the transfer case, I just found mine had way too much slop in it, so that is why I went this route. And now we should be able to remove it. Alright. I guess with this I'm planning on just cleaning the whole thing out, because at this point I don't see why you wouldn't. So give me a second, guys, and I'll get this all cleaned up. Okay, guys, so as we kind of suspected there, the axle shafts do have a little washer on the end of them that keeps it inside of the differential, I guess, from pulling out. Some of them you can just take the knuckles off and pull them out though, so I'm not sure if we're going to need that washer and the E-clip on the new axle shafts, or if that'll be included. But I'm just going to clean up this differential, and then I need to shim these gears in because I do have some slop in the front end of this. Pull this E-clip off the end here if I can find the slop. Alright, now I'll put this shim on here. Just a little extra, I guess. And then the bearing can go back on. And we can put the bearings back on this guy. Put it in the axle and then try it. Well, that feels okay to me. Now I just have to wait for axle shafts to come. Okay, so we're back now. These finally came in the mail a day late, so I couldn't put them in as soon as I pulled these out. They were supposed to be here yesterday, but they ended up getting here today, so now that I have everything cleaned out and ready, we can go ahead and install them. So they already come completely assembled. As you can see, we have a short side and a long side because the differential's offset. And we don't have to put those washers that retain it into the axle on these. I guess the reason with that is because the dog bones, the shaft could move in and out since there's just that pin there, where these, they are rigid, they won't move in and out. We have this collar here that we can pull back if we want to take them apart, but I think I'm just going to put some grease in there and let it work its way around instead of having to pull it apart. And that should be fine for these. Make sure we put grease on all the points where the shaft will be contacting other surfaces, especially here where it goes into the differential. I'm gonna grease the differential before I get it all put back in the axle. Just be easier this way. Now the short side will do the same thing, some grease in the joint here. And then of course where it goes into the differential. I'm not going to go too overkill on these shafts, but having grease in here will help keep water out of the differential. And now with both these halves greased, we can start putting things back together. Okay, now that I got the axle back bolted together and reattached to the leaf springs, we can put the third member back on. Put some grease in here, and I'm going to Loctite all of these very small screws that go around here. Okay, now that all those screws are tightened down very carefully, we can put the knuckles back on. And what am I missing? Make sure the bushings, these little brass bushings, are in all the knuckles still. Then I'll turn the servo towards this side that has both linkages coming to it, and then we'll do the opposite side. Put a final little bit of grease on here, and then just slowly slipping the knuckle over the shaft to make sure all the bearings are going in. Clean that side up a little bit, and now we can throw some screws in here so that nothing falls apart on us. These screws you're also going to want to put some Loctite on. And then I'll worry about the top side once we flip the truck back over. Same thing for this opposite side. And now that we have done both of the bottom sides, we can do the tops. And I almost forgot to put the drive shaft back on. Now the next step is to put these small drive pins back in the axle shafts. Then the hexes. And the the last piece is putting the wheel nuts on, and then it should be all done. So there you go, guys. That is how to install the XVD axle shafts in the Yoda 1 axle. It should be fairly similar for the Yoda 2 axles. I don't know if they come with these axle shafts already. I don't think so. And you do still get as much steering as I was getting before. I was a little worried those joints were going to bottom out first, but it looks like we're still getting the same amount of steering, and it shouldn't be binding. If you are going to get these axle shafts, make sure you do my steering modification, because if you're not planning on doing that steering modification, you're not going to get any further steering than you were before. The axle shafts themselves don't actually make the turning radius on these axles better. You have to move the shocks back here so that the knuckles will stop bottoming out, but if you aren't planning on moving the shocks back, then the stock dog bone axle shaft should be fine. So glad I got these installed to be able to try them out next time I take the trail finder out. If you're interested in any of the parts you see here, you can get them on my website, extremrc4x4.com. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.